Welcome back to the show. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we're discussing a very sensitive issue. Can Nigeria afford the cost of 31 additional states? Nigeria's current structure of 36 states and 774 local governments has been in place since 1996. However, demands for the creation of new states have persisted, driven by various factors such as ethnic and regional identity, economic development, and access to resources. Proponents of creating new states argue it would promote more effective governance and development at local level, allow for more diverse representation and voices in government, address historical grievances and marginalization of certain groups. But critics, however, has raised concerns about the financial sustainability of creating new states, the potential for increased bureaucracy and corruption, and the impact on Nigeria's already strained economy. And that includes persons like the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, who also gave a statement over the weekend stating that 31 new states might be far-fetched. And this proposal of this creation of the 31 additional states has sparked intense debates, with proponents, as I said, arguing that it will accelerate development and improve governance, while critics question the feasibility and potential consequences of such a move. Joining us right now as we explore this complex issue with us is Mohammed Abdullahi and Professor Simeon Inna, who will also help us to examine the potential implications of creating these new states in Nigeria. You're very welcome, Professor Simeon and Mohammed. Do I have you here?
Thank you, ladies. Although in broadcasting, we don't have ladies, we have gentlemen of the press. So thank you, gentlemen of the press.
I would prefer ladies, sir, but thank you very much for that. And it's so nice to have you here. So this conversation is something that, as I said, affects us all, because even as people from the West, on this table we have people from the West, people from the South, people from the East, and it seems like representation matters at every time. But what do you think are the estimated cost of creating these 31 additional states in Nigeria, and how would you think these costs would be funded? We already have economic strain as it is. We're funding 36 states. Even hospitals, like you rightly said on the newspaper this morning, has become a struggle. So do you have, maybe, are you for it or against it at this point?
From the perspective of Alex Oti, I join my views with him because we already have a feeding bottle economy. Every month, the 36 states run to Abuja to ask for funds. When you now create 31 states, that you can address OT as a financial expert, because aside from being a senior executive in First Bank, he was the MD, chief executive of Diamond Group for 10 years. So he knows what he's talking about, and he's been there. He's there already. So he knows what it feels like, being a governor, what it feels like looking at finances of the country or the state. So I can align myself with him that it's a no-no having 31 additional states. The question is, the 36 states, how many of them are viable? If you allow them now to stand on their own, how many of them are viable? That's the issue. So if they are not viable, why are you creating additional states?
Absolutely.
I think in 2014, when we had the confab, what they said, which is what I will buy, is that there is an imbalance already, that Nigeria is standing on a tripod: the north, the south, and the east, the west and the east, sorry. And that the others have a minimum of 6 states, and it's only the southeast that has 5 states. And they advocated in that 2014 that one additional state should be created in the southeast, and before anybody can think of creating another state, because they understand. Recall that these are gentlemen, elderly people. Most of them there were elderly people that have seen this country inside out. So I will agree with Oti that creating additional 31 states now will crumble this economy, because where are the funds going to come from? The states are lazy. They cannot increase the IGR. They're always running to Abuja every month to collect funds to sustain their state. It would have been a different thing if these states were viable on their own, but they are not. So what are we saying? How are they going to get the money to run the states? I think it is just a jamboree. Even what the National Assembly is doing, they know they are going nowhere because you are going to go around the zones to collect data for constitutional review, and there was no publicity. Maybe you tell them a day before the day. So it's dead on arrival. There was news making rounds that the Senate has passed the first round and they are creating, they have approved about 12 new states. Even at that, which means they were looking at 2 states for every senatorial, for every zone. At the end of the day, if you create 12 additional states, I will still say it is too big to manage. The challenge we have in this economy is that we have a bogus economy, and that there are no funds to run them. Look at what we have with our ministries. We are told that the Rosanya report will come into bear, but instead of that happening, we created additional MDAs. So the problem is there. I don't know why government is doing what they are doing. It is so expensive to run this federal system. And that's why people are advocating. Maybe we go back to the 1963 Constitution, which is parliamentary system. Maybe, because this one is very, very, very expensive to run. And the people in power are even making it more difficult by creating jobs for the boys. That's what I call it. It's just a way to create jobs for the boys. Otherwise, what's the essence of creating an additional state? If you read what Oti said, he said it will even create more room for crime because the governors are just collecting money. See, let me prove this. Check. Anytime they go to FEC to collect the allocation, 2 days after, dollar will rise. What do? They just collect the money, change it to dollar, and begin to do whatever they like with it. Once they pay salaries and do 1 or 2 roads, they come on television and show us. At this 21st century, somebody will take 2 weeks to be showing roads that he has done. Meanwhile, he's not paying salaries. Is that the kind of thing we want to do in Nigeria in the 21st century? People have gone past, doing roads and doing bridges and what have you. We are talking of things that will move the nation forward. We are talking of AI now in China. Yes, it can work there. But when it comes here, we'll begin to hear things like glitches. There are no power to sustain them. Recall that those things will be run on power. And it's human beings that are going to operate them. With the things we are doing in Nigeria, do you think we can do that here? My answer is no. Because there will be no energy to power some of these things. As we are about starting this program, they just yank off the light. The weather is dull. I can't even on my solar panel. So that's the kind of country you run. And we are not doing anything. The electricity is nowhere. The roads are not even good. Even the local government, that the federal government, the president signed an executive bill and nothing was happening. The governors went to court. The Supreme Court said that local government autonomy should be allowed to function. But are they functioning? My answer is no. The governors are not allowing that. Why do they want to create more states? Why do they want to create more states? You see, I don't think that creating more states is the answer or the solution to our problem now. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, sir. I totally agree with you concerning the creation of states, that we need to actually restructure the other states we have, the 36 states. We need to put things in order. But here is my question. Let's assume we actually want to create states, right? So what financial or structural benchmark should be in place before any state should be or is provided or is approved?
No, the state should be able to show us how much they are going to generate internally. That's the internally generated revenue. How much is it going to be? What are the infrastructures that they think they can go ahead? See, if you say creation of state is totally bad, nobody is saying it's totally bad. But what we're saying is that we have enough already, and the ones we have are not viable. So any state coming in must tell us how viable they are going to be. How are they going to generate their own revenue to sustain what is coming from Abuja? Or are they going to depend in Abuja on Abuja? This feeding bottle economy is not working. It is not working. Apart from Lagos, Port Harcourt, and maybe one or two other states, you'll find out that every month, once they finish the federal allocation, of course, like I said before, once they collect the money and change the one they want to change in dollar and save in their foreign account, the little one that comes, they just pay salaries and do one or two roads. And then to tell you that they are working, they come and use all the newspapers, front page of the newspaper. You know how much it costs to advertise on the front page of a newspaper, cover the newspaper with just roads, how many kilometers of road they are building in 21st century. And that's what you want to do. And you say you want additional state. I don't think it's right for now.
So much, Professor. I mean, insightful one, really. But then I want to ask my question now to Mohammed, right? Now, given all the things Professor have said, you can actually see that he's coming from the impact, the negative impact that having to create 31 states would actually be, if eventually we created. But I want us to even weigh it. Let's weigh the options, the negative impact and the positive ones. Which of, I mean, if we are able to weigh it, which one do we think we should even go for more? And if at all, after weighing this now, we see that, the negative impact is more, what alternative solution or route do you think the government should take in, in getting this equity? Because that's what they'll tell you. They tell us that, it's for the, the grassroots citizens, exactly. So those kind of things. So I want us to be able to weigh it. And this is to Mohammed now. Let's weigh it, and then let's talk about alternative or, solutions that we can actually bring in. If at all creating 31 states is actually not going to work for Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Good morning, Nigerians. Personally, my own very personal view, I am not for the creation of additional states. But like I said, this is my personal view. But 2 days ago, I mean precisely on Saturday, I was at the public hearing here in Lagos of the House of Representatives in terms of constitutional review. And what dominated the floor, I mean, what majority of Southwest people, particularly Lagos, Oyo, and Ogun that are represented here, were demanding for is additional state creation. Now, let me tell you this. There are injustices in this country, I mean, in so many spheres. For instance, I had the prof talking about the country sitting on tripod, I mean, the North, the West, and the South. But it might also interest you to know that Oyo State alone, please, and you can verify this, Oyo State alone is about 28,000 plus square meters, while the whole of Southeast, comprising of Imo, Ebonyi, Anambra, Enugu, and Abia, is just a little above 29,000 square meters. And now you find the whole of Southeast having 5 governors, more than 18 senators, and about perhaps 44 House of Rep members. But just Oyo alone, Oyo has just 1 governor, which has almost same land mass with the whole of Southeast, which has same, in fact, even perhaps in terms of population also. And so there is imbalance there. So if the people of Oyo State, for instance, who are fighting for Ogun State to be created out of Oyo State, another Ibadan State to be created out of Oyo State, if they are fighting for this, if you think about this critically, you see they are also right. Because like I said, in terms of landmass, Oyo State alone is almost equivalent to the whole of Southeast. You understand what I'm saying? If you come to Lagos at the same time, Lagos has most population in Nigeria, but just has about 20-something local government recognized by the Nigerian constitution, which means the federal government is only funding these 27 local government. While Kano State, in which Jigawa State was even carved out, Jigawa State was carved out of Kano State not too long ago, had 44 local governments still standing, recognized by the constitution. An additional almost 30 local government in Jigawa State. So meaning if you put Kano State only together, when it was with Kaduna, with Jigawa State, you have almost 70 local government. recognized by this constitution. And Lagos, which is your central commercial center, has more population than any other state, has just 27 or 28 local government recognized by the constitution. So like I said, personally, I am not for additional state creation. But if you look at so many injustice, meted out around some of these things, like I mentioned, these facts, you can cross-check them. You see that people who are clamoring, people who are agitating for additional state in some respect, in some areas, like even Kogi State. Kogi State is so large. Niger State is the largest state in Nigeria, still about 70,000+ square kilometers, more than the Southeast, double. You understand? And it's just a state. So if you look at some of these imbalances, and we are in a democracy, if people want more state and they can justify it based on some of these facts that I have mentioned, I don't think there's anything wrong in creating additional state. Then mind you, I think I also disagree with some of the points raised by the professor. Please, with due respect. If we are talking about how to fund the state, I think it's very simple. To a layman like me, for instance, if you give Oyo State 2 billion naira every month, for instance, this is my own analogy, please, and then you create Ibadan State out of Oyo State. So it means Oyo State should take 1 billion and Ibadan State should take 1 billion. That is just my own layman understanding. So it means Oyo State and now new Ibadan State will find a way to augment the earnings coming from the federal government by their own IGR. I think it's as simple as that. You understand? So I think the issue of even funding is not a big issue at all. If a state is earning so amount and you are agitating for additional states from that state, it means the current federal allocation should be splitted. Yes, and then it depends on the new governor or the old governor of whichever state to now augment what he's getting with his IGR. So I think the issue of funding is not even a problem. But what I think is germane is the management of funds. And that is our biggest issue in this country. You understand? So the current structure that we have, that, for instance, since the coming of this administration, we understood that the federal allocations have almost doubled, if not more than doubled. What have the state governments been doing with these allocations? What have they been doing? How many of them have shown us and been accountable to Nigerians that this is what I've done with the double allocations that I've gotten since gotten into office? So funding for me, I don't think is a big problem. Seriously, like I mentioned, if you are getting a certain amount and a state is created out of your state, it means it be split depending on how many states is created. And again, remember, another big advantage of creation of the state, like I said earlier, please mark my words, I am not personally for, but I think people who are agitating have a point. Also understand that this creation of state will bring governance much more closer. For instance, like I said, in Oyo State that has that is the size of almost the whole of Southeast. If you have 2 or 3 more governors in Oyo State, it means the work is lesser for the single governor. It means governance is much more closer to people. For instance, the Ibadan State that is being clamored for, it means the whole of Ibadan only will have a governor, and then his role is focused entirely on Ibadan, compared to Sheyi Makinde that is there now, that is overseeing Oyo, Ogbomosho, Ibadan, Shaki, and so on and so forth. So it has advantages and definitely disadvantages. And like I said, I am not for, but I think people who are clamoring have a point. And because we are in a democracy, I think they deserve a fair hearing.
Okay.
Mohammed.
Okay, can I come in?
Okay, Professor, of course you would come in. Let's quickly take a short breather and then we'll be back to hear your insight on that. So please don't go anywhere. We'll be right back shortly. Welcome back to the show. Of course, Professor Simeon, you wanted to add to what Mohammed had said. Do I still have Professor here? Okay, Oluchi, I think you have to direct your question to Mohammed.
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay, Professor, you wanted to come in to give your own insight. Yes, please speak.
Yes. All right. He was talking of Lagos State having the 720. Lagos State has 20 local governments. That's that. And about landmass, when people come up with such arguments. Now, he wants Niger State too. Niger State is about 3 times of your, it has one state. Now, look at river states. Niger and Ibadan can make it 10 times. But the IGR of rivers alone can fund both Oyo and Niger. So this landmass issue should be discussed. That's why to Kano, you know, this argument that Kano was created the same time Lagos State was created. Because of landmass now, Kano, the original Kano now has, if you combine the two states, they have about 77 local governments, while Lagos State is having only 20 local governments. Let me shock him. It is only in Nigeria that when you move close to the desert, the population is more than when you go to the savannah. In other clans, once you are going to close to the desert, the population decreases. So this issue of landmass has been the trajectory that politicians are using to, get to what they want. Landmass per se does not give you an increased IGR because we have seen it play out. I've given you the example of River State, that the landmass is so small compared to Oyo and Niger. But they will tell you because of this, go to those areas, you will travel more than a kilometer, you will not see a building. Yet, it's a local government. So let's look at issues from the right perspective. Yes, I agree that it is not completely out of place that some people should agitate for a state if you are talking of a democracy. For Lagos State, for instance, Alimosho is the biggest local government in Nigeria. And when the former governor, Tinubu, made attempt to create more local governments, the federal government rebuffed it because it is on the exclusive list. Now, having said that, one will expect that for Lagos State, for instance, maybe an additional state should be better from Lagos State. Why? Because their IGR is high. They can afford another state. But states like Niger and Ibadan, for instance, what is their IGR? What have they done to improve their IGR? What is their IGR today? What has it been? So how are you telling me that creating more states will not improve the IGR? It's a no-no for me. But for states that have shown capacity that they can increase their IGR, like Lagos State, if they say they want an additional state, well, by all means, yes. Because if that state was created in 1967 and up till now, nothing has been done to improve the place, even the local government. I think for them, if they ask for an additional state, I won't have any issues with that because they can adequately fund the new states.
Professor, I really love the beautiful analogy that you've helped, us see this morning. And I'm also trying to link it with what, Mohammed has also said. But I want us to come to, let's have like a very solid conclusion in that sense. Are we saying that this creation of states would only work for certain states that already have, how did you put it now, the capacity to be able to take such, maybe looking at land mass and the fact that they're already overpopulated, like Lagos, Kano, and some other state that you've mentioned? Are we looking at that option, looking at what Godrichi said as alternative? Let's just have that solid conclusion. Mohammed, can you please address that?
Yes, I think that's my submission as well. I am not, like I said, I am not personally for the creation of additional, because I see it as balkanization of our nation, seriously. And it is actually not the root cause of our problem, or it's actually not the solution to the myriads of our problems. But I think people should have fair hearing. Remember, we practice democracy, you understand? So I don't think it's right to totally shelve off people's concern about landmass. Seriously. I still want to disagree with the prof in that respect. If we say landmass is not necessarily important, I think it is. It's just because our own kind of country here that we don't, we don't take advantage of so many of our potentials. For instance, like you rightly said, like Prof, I'm sure will agree, Niger State is capable if they put all acts together to feed this nation with that same landmass. If the government of that state, and I'm happy now that the farmer governor is trying to do something in terms of agriculture. If they put everything right, they are able to feed Nigeria by just that landmass, and that's a plus. So I think what I'm saying is that everyone should be given a fair hearing, even in terms of representation. For instance, so if you talk about even not if you're not even concerned about the landmass, like I said, or your state, for instance, as big as it is, being the former capital of Western Nigeria, I mean Ibadan, you understand, has just few representatives in the House of Representatives, in the National Assembly, compared to the Southeast. And what is also, if you want to look at the population as well of Southeast and compare to a state like Oyo and even Osun and so on, or even Kogi and even Niger State. So it's not entirely one way thing. We have to weigh all the options. Like I also believe, in my own little belief, I think some of the state creation will also bring governance very close to the people. If you go to so many of our states, even including Lagos State, except the metropolitan areas, the CBDs, immediately you drive 2 hours, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 kilometers out of the CBDs, there's a challenge. Nigerians in rural areas do not feel the impact of governance. They do not feel the impact of government. So some of these state creations, additional state creations, might also solve that problem. It's very possible, because definitely, if you have new state, it means governance will be taken further and nearer to the people. So we should look at all of these things, without just focusing on, say, whether population only and then IGR generation only. I think we'll be doing a whole lot of disservice to other areas, definitely. But again, it's a challenge. Even if you create a new state today and we sort of restructure the country, it means those new government that will be created, or new state, governors of those new states that will be created, will find a way, definitely, to improve their IGR, because if they can't generate much, it means they are dead on arrival. So that will become their own problem. So I think, in conclusion, we should just have a fair hearing. We should make it. We are a democratic nation. We've been running democratic government now for the past 20 years plus. So I think we should give people fair hearing and then put things into consideration, rather than just a blanket and a one-way forward thinking that this seems to generate.
Madam Professor Simeon, for joining this conversation. Yeah. And what I really like about this is the fact that you are both from 2 different states, still, analyzing what could be for other states going forward. So I've seen the aspect where people have complained, or people from certain states have complained of lack of representation, just because the person who has been elected comes from a particular local government or from a particular side of maybe the many ethnic groups. And so when the person is in power, they tend to only fix those areas where they are from, and then neglect the other side, maybe due to historical issues or maybe land issues before they became what they became and all of that stuff. So maybe I might agree with Mohammed that people should get fair hearing, but they should also give reasons why this should stand. Why should you have an extra state? And it should not just be about we are more in numbers in this ethnic group than the next person. It should have economic benefits and very strict security provision in that sense, because security issue is still something that is very bothersome. And if we now start to split states that are supposed to be together, where it might even be that their togetherness is what is even stopping that place from crumbling, and they will now start to split them, they might start to put strict rules to the next ethnic group, which might even promote more security challenges. So I think that there should be very, very strict rules to why an extra state to be created even regardless of their landmass and the possibilities of, creating their IGR. But bringing all of this together, policy is what would affect these changes. So what kind of policies do you think, or policy changes do you think would be needed to support, if at all, these certain states now particularly really need to be represented in that state? What policy changes would you advise? Let me start from Professor Simeon, and then Mohammed can take his own contribution.
Let me address an issue before I come to your question. The issue of Niger feeding Nigeria. What have they brought to the table as we speak now? See, we'll just say some of these things because we want to say them. In a country where somebody will study agriculture and will wear a suit and tie and is looking for a job in the bank, is it a country where you're talking of landmass feeding the nation? Now, if that was the case, some of us will, say, okay, go ahead with that. Now, talking of fair hearing, if you're talking of fair hearing, you always talk of the minorities. Do you know that the states have the Southeast the minority? Because they have the least number of states. They have the least number of representation at the National Assembly. So what are we talking about here? I said it earlier that this country started on a tripod before we had a fourth region. That's the Midwest region. Now, you make the other ones. Recall that all the states have been created by the military. And they have always, given the North more of the states than the South, if you look at it from that perspective. Now, coming to your question proper, I would like to say, I said it before, I'm going to say it for the uptake time. You see, when these states cannot show how they are going to sustain themselves, it is not a question of just creating states for the sake of creating states. Yes, I agree that when you create states and you have people to man them, you are talking of policy. We have enough policies to run this country. Our problem has been implementation. Have we not made law for local government? Is it being obeyed? There's a 2014 confab for crying out loud. Let them pick up that document, dust it, and implement it. The challenge we have in this country has been the Constitution. Our Constitution is a fraud. The opening comment, we, the people of Nigeria, is a fraud because there was nobody that elected anybody to go and draw a constitution for us. It was 2-3 people that were kept in a room and told what to do by Abacha because he wanted to succeed himself, and he wrote that document. There are a lot of lacunas in that document, and the problem we're having today, including the situation of state and local government, is caused by that document to call it a constitution. Except that constitution is rigid, we are not saying anything that can benefit anybody. People have banded with the idea, and I want to agree with them. Can we go back to the parliamentary system? The money to run this federal system is so enormous. We can't afford it. A lot of jobs are being created for the boards, and those jobs don't mean anything to the economy. So let's go back to the parliamentary system where the parliament will throw up the prime minister or what have you. And with that, we are wasting so much resources running the federal system. I don't want to use any, like I would have said, what we are doing now, what Fela would call demonstration of grace. This is not democracy. You have democracy, you have what is happening in the National Assembly. In a democracy, there are 3 main arms of government. You have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But a system where what we have today is just the executive. Every other person, the executive, the president is just like a headmaster, and others are class teachers under him. That's why you can hear, oh, your mandate you shall stand on the National Assembly instead of the anthem of the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Professor Simeon, thank you very much. Let's go back to what Mohammed has to say as we wrap up the conversation today.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one.
Very interesting.
Like I said, yes, like I said, whether I understand Prof's point of view, but again, at least, whether it's on paper only, we run a democratic government. You understand? And then people should be given fair hearing. My own biggest challenge is the fact that very many things that we've been clamoring for is in fact not our major problem. I think for me as a Nigerian, our biggest problem has been the judicious use of our very limited resources. Nigeria is a very poor country. I don't know whether we want to agree or not. We are a very poor country. But our biggest problem is not the fact that we are poor, but our biggest problem is that we are not judiciously using our limited resources. Seriously. So it's quite deplorable, and it's quite challenging. The policies are there. Yes, I want to agree with Prof. I mean, in this regard, that the Constitution is a very big problem. Seriously, there are so many things in that same Constitution that needed to be amended, or perhaps the Constitution overhauled totally. You understand? The issues of security vote, for instance, that the government is not accountable for. The president and the governors are entitled to security votes every month in billions of naira that nobody can ask them what they do with it. This is a big problem for a country that is grappling with paying teachers or even 70,000 naira as minimum wage. So there are so many things in that constitution that needed to go. For instance, it might shock you. Nigeria ceded Bakassi local government. A large part of that local government was ceded to Cameroon since the days of former President Obasanjo. But is that effective in our constitution? We still have it that we have 774 local government listed in that constitution, and Bakassi is fully listed there. So, these are some of the challenges, that we talk about pertaining in that constitution. So I think, yes, it's quite commendable what the House is doing. I mean, the National Assembly is doing, going around, whether it's not really in terms of the implementation too. I quite agree with Prof that, there is no much publicity for good representation, but at least it's fair enough that they are going around the country asking for people's views, asking for pressure groups, NGOs and pressure groups view about how, what they needed to amend the constitution. And it might interest you to know, like I mentioned, I was there 2 days ago. The state creation is the number one thing on the list that people are shouting. Then secondly, state police. We have understood that, for instance, now, someone can't just sit in Abuja and give directives to somebody far away in Zamfara, in Anambra, and so on and so forth. In terms of security, we needed a security that is down to our local government, to our communities, so that we can checkmate this issue of insecurity. Yeah. So I think it's commendable what the National Assembly is doing, and hopefully by the end of this exercise, we're able to get a document, a constitution. We're able to amend the constitution or even write a new constitution that will be beneficial to every yearnings of the larger populations, of Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and of course, Professor Simeon, for joining the conversation, as I said. Not to wrap up without hearing from my co-anchors this morning, I would really like to wrap up with your ending words with this whole topic, so that it doesn't look like we're asking the question.
One thing I really got from the conversation, especially from Mohammed's point of view about, fair hearing and everything, it just made more sense, because the former creation of state was under the military system of government. This is democracy now. So we have to always consider that. And Governor Oti coming out to say that he doesn't necessarily agree with it, I can understand his point of view as a governor who has been working tirelessly in Abia State to ensure that the economy is better. So maybe he's looking at it from his own point of view as well. But he has mentioned that some other states probably needs this kind of implementation beyond what other states are looking at. So fair hearing is really important, like he has mentioned. I hope that the necessary policies that will make this work the right way should be put in place. Let's see how it goes on from here.
Emphasis on policies, actually. I feel like with the right policies in place, we'll be able to get what we want. And I wanted to even talk about the funds at which we'll be using to sustain this, this state. We mainly, the creation starts. So I just hope that we are able to, get that. Given how it is with loan and how we've been, accumulating loan for the past, how many years now. So I just hope that they find better means.
As Nigeria.
Do you understand? I just hope that they find better means to, get the loans that be able to fund this properly. If not, you know how it is now. When you start, something in a very orthodox manner, it of course will definitely fail. So I just hope that they are able to put these things together. But yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, goodness.
All right. For me, actually, I will start with looking at what he said, that not the professor, that concerning the Oyo State and the Southeast, right? That we have more of local government in the Southeast than in the Oyo State. Now, if we're looking at that, creating of more states, more local government, I hope we should just consider the pros and the cons. Which one is at the higher rate? Is it the positive effect or the negative effect? If it's the negative effect, meaning we'll be looking at ethnicity diversity, and that's where we have ethnic rivalry, where some certain people, because they've given them the opportunity to like break out from the United States they were, now be having ethnic issues. And that also is one of the criteria that will make a country to not really totally grow. And also looking at the provision of funds, concerning the management of funds. Let's not forget that we have an issue already, like a backlog issue in Nigeria concerning accountability and transparency. Because if we are creating more states, meaning we are having more local government, and also we are also creating indirectly more loopholes for more funds to go down the drain.
Yes.
I think that question is what people should start answering. All the government officials or people who are also clamoring for these extra states, I think that's the question they should start asking. If you really want representation, how accountable will you be towards that representation and transparency? And this is where we wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. We'll see you again tomorrow with another amazing topic. Do not go anywhere. Subscribe now. Bye-bye.